I thought when I wanted to shotgun effect these questions as much as possible, and by that I mean have no fucking clue, like no rhyme or reason between any of them. It's just three retards sitting in a shed talking.
Sounds right.
And with that, I thought, if there's any question that is well purposed for the two of you of all people, it's quite possibly this one. Would you live on Mars?
I don't know enough about it.
Right, let's.
There's not much there, mate.
Let's work.
Is it just me and James together? That'd be quite funny.
Repopulate.
Imagine we hit driving range.
If the driving range, it is a whole driving range.
Yeah, you have the grandest driving range in the universe.
With less gravity. Ball goes further.
And no Tiger Woods.
And no Tiger Woods. We are the best players on planet Mars.
I'll set the scene. You're going up with
Martin.
10,000 people, excluding Martin, to repopulate. You are going to be the first generation of Mars.
Mm-hmm.
You're not coming back. You have to stay. And you go tomorrow. Would you go?
Yeah.
Why not?
Why? Right, first of all, James, why?
I just do it for my own personal experience. Just be kind of fucking cool to be just somewhere else.
It might be fucking shit up there.
Space is cool.
We're already in space.
What he said.
Yeah.
We're already in space. Well, we're in a cabin, but everyone else.
No, but it's just like the thought of going to a different planet.
But like,
being like the first humans on a different planet.
Would it be anything like Earth? You know how we go outside.
It's nothing like Earth.
You see the sky and the clouds. Will you go on Mars and just see stars and that?
Do you know, this is something I've thought about extensively. James sounds like he knows something here, so go for it.
Okay, so you know how our sky is blue because that's our atmosphere, right? So Mars is the same. It has an atmosphere, just different colour. So the sky would be a slight different colour. Sunsets there are actually blue. And you would still see stars. They would just be different stars because the planet is placed differently in the solar system. So we see different constellations.
That'd be so cool. I'd be there tomorrow.
Okay, I've changed his mind.
So you're going? So you're both going?
No. So we're going.
Yeah.
You're going to have to leave everyone here, though. Including some people.
Just FaceTime them.
You can't. EE hasn't established
it. It'll take like 3 years to reach.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll FaceTime them at 20 and get through at 75. Hello.
I've been waiting for so long.
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to get through with a girlfriend on this, you're gonna have a serious problem. So why don't you text me back? Well, I was in fucking Mars. Couldn't help you.
I did send a message.
Yeah, I sent a message 3 fucking years ago. Why didn't you reply? Because I'm dead. So I asked my mum about this on a sort of slightly separate point about would you go to the moon, because of course we can already go unless you ask certain
mentally challenged people.
Would you go to the moon? And she said no. She said flat out no. I would never want to go to the moon. Now I vehemently disagreed with that. Her reasoning was that if you were to go to the moon, it would feel, or she thinks that it would feel terribly lonely. Because you're there and everyone else is there. But I'd go to the moon.
I'd quite like that.
Yeah. I would go to the moon.
I wouldn't really mind the fact that it'd be really lonely.
Okay.
Because it would just be so, I don't know, there'd be something about it so peaceful.
The only thing is here though, James, there is a fine line between lonely and peaceful.
I would just find it peaceful.
And this is something actually I never... do you know what? I'm going to shut up. Why would you find it peaceful? Because I've got a question that's close to this, so...
Because there's no sound in space.
Right.
Because it's a vacuum. So sound can't travel.
There's no sound if you sit in a sensory deprivation tank, but you're sat in here.
This isn't fully sensory deprived.
That's my point.
Deprived.
Deprived.
That's it.
That's my point.
Deprived.
I'd love to, because you could
deprivacified.
You're standing on the moon, you jump and do like 5 backflips. That's so cool.
Do you know, I didn't even think about this though. I was listening to a podcast with someone who went to the moon. I think it was Michael Jackson. And,
he's still up there, isn't he?
Yeah,
he did make the moonwalk.
Exactly. I didn't even think about that. And he said that he worked on the ISS. And he said people will routinely get very scared of falling when they're on the ISS because, of course, they work outside of it. And I never thought about that. it never actually occurred to me that you could have a fear of falling in space. Because it just somehow didn't. I don't know why it didn't sort of occur to me that would be something you would think about, but it didn't. And to match that, people will combat this fear by holding on very tightly to the edge of the station because they're scared of falling. And I didn't know equally well that the thing that you can actually, the only way for you to move through space sort of fluently or cohesively is with your arms. You don't use your legs, you pull.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, it's because they're so used to gravity. They're so used to having something just pulling them down that when they are weightless, it just completely fucks with their mind. It's the same when they come back down here. Their muscles are so weak.
Your bones get very brittle, don't they?
Yeah. Bones, muscles, they get weak, brittle, fucked. But the only way to be able to counteract this fear of falling is to create gravity. It sounds weird, but you can make gravity.
How do you make gravity then,
So,
Isaac?
So, I learnt this from Interstellar.
Go for
Right. So,
You're gonna just make it like this.
that's what God did.
so obviously the Earth rotates, right? So if you're on the ISS and you make the let me restart. If you make the ISS rotate really rapidly, I think I'm not sure how much RPM, but it's very fucking fast. If you make the ISS spin really rapidly, what will happen is when you're then in motion with that spinning, it will basically sort of like counteract the zero gravity, and you will then sort of get grounded. That's one way how gravity works. Obviously, because things orbit, they spin round it. The faster it spins round it, the more grounded it gets to something.
Does it ever occur to you, when you think about these things, how fucking intelligent the people that actually found that out are?
Yes.
It's
crazy.
It's insane. I was... Go for it.
How the fuck did Isaac Newton figure out that something has to be going at a specific speed round the sun or the earth for it to stay at that one speed instead of falling in and then being ripped apart or drifting off in the distance?
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, it begs a further question on people like that, of your Isaac Newtons, your Da Vinci's of the world, of how some people are so fucking smart. You know, it's unfathomable to certain individuals in a collective sitting in a shed how someone could be that intelligent. I mean, I cannot even fathom the idea of you sitting underneath a tree, an apple falling on you, and you thinking, oh shit, apple, same as the sun, let's work this out. And I can't actually remember, it might have been Isaac Newton who had developed a mass understanding of a number of he actually had discovered a number of absurdly intelligent things by about 27 or something like that. I remember Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about this. And if my Wi-Fi was going to work, I was going to tell you about, you know, the infamous Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah.
Did you see how they actually got back to Earth?
Did they actually go up to Earth? Up to space?
They went up to Earth, yeah.
Didn't they actually go to space?
Yes, they were in space. That was the problem. They couldn't get back.
Fuck.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they didn't have the fuel to get back. And how they worked it out was that they used the gravitational pull of the moon they spun around the dark side of the moon, and that propelled them back to Earth.
That makes a lot of sense.
To even think about that,
it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
No, it does. So,
no, well, it makes literal sense.
Yeah,
but in terms of comprehending it doesn't.
Yeah, it gets explained in Interstellar, actually.
I fucking knew.
I know.
The source of all information.
It's just coincidence. So it gets explained in Interstellar. So when they go through the wormhole and they get to Gargantua in the other galaxy, which obviously is like near like this planetary system.
It's near Brighton.
Yeah. So they realise they have a problem. They can't go to all the planets that they want to go to and have enough fuel to get back. So what Matthew McConaughey in the film does is they come up with this plan where they go towards Gargantua, the black hole, and they use the gravitational pull of Gargantua to drag them in. And because it's a black hole, the gravitational pull is fucking strong. And what they did was they used the gravitational pull from the black hole to pull them in, shoot them out, which would then send them over the top of the planet that they wanted to go to first. And then what they would do is they then had the gravitational pull of the planet pulling them down to save fuel.
Yes, that's all well and good. You explaining it through movie terms, James, but someone had to actually work that out without watching Interstellar.
It is nothing.
Yeah, Christopher Nolan before he watched Interstellar. Do you know what? That actually really impresses me. The intelligence that some movie directors have with sort of creating movies about things like this. The comprehension you actually have to have of the topic is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, the black hole in that, you know, it looks like it's got that orange disc around it and everything, and it's like warped. It looks like the disc goes in front of it and over the top of it and below it. That was before we'd ever taken a photo of a black hole. We didn't know what black holes looked like. Oh
yeah, I remember hearing.
And then we took our first photo, and it was the exact same image. And black holes do that exact thing because it's bending the light, so it makes it look like the accretion disk goes in front of the black hole, over the top and underneath.
I mean, there's actually quite a rich history of movie directors, and by rich history I mean two movie directors being predictive or sort of in tune with the extraterrestrial elements of our being, because you know Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick. There's a great deal of conspiracy on this point as to whether he was the one. When people say that we faked the moon landing, which we didn't, when people say that, what they're referring to is, I'm sure you've probably seen some of the footage that looks a bit shonky of the moon landing, where people say, oh, that's, you know, the flag's not moving quite right there, or the footprints aren't, the various things they point to. What they're saying is tied to a sort of possibility that Stanley Kubrick was on a team that directed a fake moon landing. And there was an interesting point that I saw on this, was that one of Stanley Kubrick's movies is shot with no light. It was only candlelight that he used, so he didn't have any sort of proper lighting. And the reason he was able to do that was because he used NASA lenses on his cameras, so the best lenses in the world, which of course enabled him to record in such a manner. And there was talk and sort of conspiracy that the reason as to how he got those lenses was because he had been working on the NASA sets and had his fingers in those pies, which I thought was quite interesting.
We didn't fake the moon landing.
We didn't fake the moon landing, and I think people are actually... First of all, right, I'm just going to weigh in here. I want you to talk about this first before I say anything else. I want you to weigh in here. I want to see what Barney's got to say.
On this?
Well, I mean, on any point of this, it's pretty obvious that we did land on the moon. I don't think anyone can refute that.
I think it's a pretty stupid thing to try and fake, to be honest.
Why?
What was the point of faking it?
Well, because at the time, because it was the time of the Cold War, we, or the West and Russia, were in essentially a who's got the bigger balls race, and that manifested itself in some part in getting to the moon. That was quite a significant, because that presented itself as quite a sort of significant point of who was actually more technologically advanced, who was actually moving in the right directions here. That was why it was so important that someone, or it was so important, whoever got to the moon basically made it known. I don't think people actually understand, though, that on that, do you not think that if we did fake the moon landing, that Russia wouldn't have done everything they could to expose that, to go, hang on, didn't actually do it?
Yeah.
I think it's besides the 9/11 conspiracies and the chemtrails conspiracies by certain people, I think That's a pretty stupid one, the moon landing.